Good morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We're live. Today is June 26th, 2023. Bender, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You get them trees?
I got a lot of them.
A lot of them.
We're about done pulling out trees. I still have clean up of the fence lines to do before we can put in new fences. Quick note, I guess. I got one neighbor who, most of the neighbors are great around the property, and we got in touch with them. And, you know, if you have a shared fence, it is customary for, if the fence needs repair, that if you're willing to do it, that the neighbor you share the fence with is usually willing to cover costs, or not cover them, but share costs. Mm-hmm. We have one neighbor that he's really strange. Like, he's the guy that he's got flags all over his, but they're not like, it's not like a nice flagpole and a clean looking flag. He has like weird shit that says weird shit, and it's like zip tied on his fence, sort of flags. Walks around in cut off jean shorts and a tank top if he's wearing a shirt. And all of that is, I guess, fine, but he's very much like, he didn't want us to repair the fences because it means we have to cut some branches away from the fence line. Mm-hmm. And there's always like weird noises and stuff coming from his property over there that I'm not quite sure.
Weird noises. Please define.
Like, okay, so there was constant, like, almost like screaming, right? That seemed really weird. We later found out that he's got a daughter that has cerebral palsy, right? And okay, she's the one making those noises. But then, like, and his daughter's older. Like, I think she's probably in her 40s or so. But a couple weeks ago, they were just blasting children's music, like blasting. I'm on 17 acres and I could hear it like from the middle of the property, like just kids' music. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. It was probably a month ago or so. She was on her wheelchair going down this county road and just tipped over, mm-hmm, and fell and was just like there for hours. It's just there's just some strange stuff outside of just, and nobody lives there. He's renovating this house. He's got another house that's a couple lots down that he actually lives in, but yet again, like blasting children's music all day. And then there's like occasional, like it's just weird. There's just weird stuff. And
it almost sounds scary.
A little bit creepy. And we had started clearing the fence lines, and I get this phone call from him, and he's like, "Hey, I just was curious what was going on because we're trying to keep the privacy." And I had reached out to him several times to ask about the fence, and he had no interest in contributing. And I told him, I said, well, if I got to do it myself, I'm probably going to have to rip out a bunch of trees. And instead of just repairing it, I'm going to clear a 5-foot line and then put in a brand new fence on my side. And he's like, well, you got to do what you got to do, but we're trying to keep the privacy around here. And I think he's trying to keep the privacy because he's got I don't know what's going on there, but outside of that, it just shit everywhere, like a van, and then like an unusable can. You know what I mean? Just it's
I've never
just
understood
like a trash
that.
lot.
I've never understood that. Why it's like that? Why people accumulate trash and just leave it there? Like they're gonna either do something with it or whatever. I've never gotten that, man. It's like
Well, so
why bring on? Yeah, go ahead.
the last part of this is we cleared this section, and you could clearly see now from my property to where his house actually sits. Well, he drug a like this blue storage shed building and drug it over to the fence line right where we cleared the trees. And it's like, okay, but now I'm going to clear the next set. What are you going to drag over next? Like, weird.
Yeah. Country living, man.
People. Told you I'm doing my best to avoid people, and then you know,
they're unavoidable.
Stuff like this is why.
Human is difficult. They pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Definitely prefer the animal. All right, man. So let's talk about the things to talk about. We can talk about the coup that was not, but that's boring. We can talk about how the headlines still want to point us to this submarine. That's boring. We can talk about bank stress test on Wednesday. Well, maybe there's something there. Wednesday bank stress test is going to be fairly important for that sector, obviously. It's weird hearing the grumblings because they're talking about having to increase capital requirements. They're talking about this and that. When asked about it, they said, we don't have a plan. But then for not having a plan, the stress test is on Wednesday. So there's obviously something there. They're just not going to let anybody know what it is. And then Friday we get PCE, which is, important to the federales. As far as opening up, we're opening up relatively flat to down. There's really, you look at these charts, you look at the action overnight, you look at where we're sitting now. This is about as ho hum. I guess we're gonna like open the markets and shit type of a, coming into a market open that we've seen in a while. Just very ho hum. Now I'm pretty sure Bender's going to show us that 1 hour chart, how we're making, this little falling wedgish type thing that keeps on kind of falling, but then it like maybe is it kind of bottoming out in through here for a move higher, or maybe setting up for a crack to the downside. It's a very in between type of moment to where it, based on the fact that we don't have a lot of data this week until you get the stress test, and then I think you have GDP on Wednesday also, and then Friday you get PCE. This is kind of in between. Very much so in between from a data standpoint. And these charts, it's like in a lot of ways you can kind of flip a coin. We've seen semis cool off. AMD especially has been taken out back and shot. Tesla seems to get a price target downgrade every other hour. Which is like, okay, that's fine. Flow has been about as unbullish as we have seen. However, we continue to get these strong risk reversals coming in for select blue chip type tickers that indicate that the move is still, in theory, higher. So with that being said, Bender, show us where we are. Show us where we might be going. Just show us something.
Show you something. All right. Every time I've heard that in the past, when I decide what to show, it usually doesn't end well.
She runs out of the room, doesn't she?
Right. Yeah. Usually it involves police. No. Yeah. Here's a 60-minute chart. You asked for it. There's the hourly chart on the ES.
And somewhere Stonkington is like going, ooh, that's the followingest wedges up against support. And
those they do something for him, don't they?
It's like he's all boned up there. We're looking to party. He's like, oh,
he's probably got pictures of falling wedges like all over his walls, framed. Yeah. I remember this beautiful falling wedge from June. Yeah. All right. So. As we were talking about last week, these hourly candles, for now, the move has been lower. The pressure has been to the downside. We've had, they like to take stops on these pops and then ultimately take it down a little bit lower. So where are we? Well, we've been talking about this daily fair value gap here. In fact, I'll flip over the daily and you can see kind of where that comes from. This candle right in here. And that is what you're seeing with this shaded box right here. So we traded down into that daily fair value gap. We still have this old new week opening gap down here, 43.49. And then we've got, more lower, but we're currently sitting 43.81. That new week opening gap would be 30 down from here if it decides it wants to trade into that. I am looking at this daily fair value gap. I'll be watching if we trade down into the bottom of that, right around that 43.70 area that we've kind of been, had our eyes on. Looking at the 60-minute chart, you can see those hourly candles right there. That would be an area, so let's say 43.68 to 70. This would be an area that I would not be surprised if, if it reaches that, if we get a bounce coming out of that, that would be an area that I would look for that. I've got I'm actually going to get rid of this orange line here. I left that up because you can see that bottom of this candle wicked down into it. That was the top of that daily fair value gap. And as we stretch that over, you can kind of see that level acting as support right in here. We broke down just below it to get into that daily fair value gap and then back above. So a trip back below 43.8175. Then I think we're looking at the London session low, 43.75 half, and the bottom of this daily fair value gap. If we're down in here, we don't see a sharp bounce back up and it falls below that. In my head, I've got to be thinking that we're probably going to trade down to that new week opening gap. There's some other stuff in here that you can see on the 60-minute. If we zoom into a 15-minute, you can see it a little bit better. There is some stuff in here, but, it likes to trade new week opening gap to new week opening gap. So I would have my eyes kind of set on, below 43.68, that this may be the target in here. As far as, a push up, and if trading into this daily fair value gap was all it was looking for, and kind of taking out these previous lows, which it is now finally done. You can see we had that double bottom from this candle's low over to this candle's low, and it has taken that out. If that was the objective and that's all it was after, and now we're going to move higher, well, I zoom in, you can see this 60-minute candle here from the London session. We've got a fair value gap in here. So, if it trades through that and then pulls back, use that as support, maybe it takes out this Asia session high, 44.0225. If we're back above 4,400 and holding, then I would start to look for, continued upside. I say that, also keep in mind that, obviously the first 15 to 30 minutes of the session can see a stop run, liquidity run, that sort of thing. Don't get caught up in that. If we get through that first 30 minutes and then, throughout the day, we can find ourselves above this Asia session high and holding that as support. Then we look at the highs on these other candles. So 44.08 and then 44.12 half. And then you got this fair value gap. I think this is off a 15-minute up here at 44.16. But that would kind of be the look. Again, if this was the objective and then we're going to turn around and start going the other way, that would kind of be that reversal look would be we take some of these out and come back, use it as support, and push higher. Then it would start to look like on these 60-minute candles, it would start to look like, okay, that was it. That's what it was after. Looking at, let's just go out to the daily real quick. Again, you can see on the daily here, this is where that fair value gap came from. You've got another one, large one down here. That's like down around 4,300. So that's 80 down from here. So, in a nutshell, and we have that regular trading hours, that gap that got left open is up above, just kind of tracking. But bigger picture here for me is that, if we fill this in, this daily fair value gap, we fill that in and don't move higher, we move lower from there, then we're probably trade down to that new week opening gap. If we find ourselves below that, get the 50% retracement here, 43.25.25, then this daily fair value gap down here. And that right in here would kind of be this, when we were talking last week, for me, I was looking at this going, well, if we get a pullback down to this 43.20, 43.30 area, that's where it starts to get, for me, where if you were waiting for this to cool off a little bit, you're waiting for a pullback, this is the area that you're likely looking for. Would be, inside of this daily fair value gap, which would also be a 50% retracement, or somewhere between 50% and 61.8%, kind of right in here. This would probably be that area that you were looking for. So I think.
How many handles down?
I think if it
are we
can get down here, that would be about 70 from where we sit right now, between 60 or 50 and 70, somewhere in there. So if we can get down in there, that's where I would really expect.
So that kind of matches up in a lot of ways, because I was looking at this 427-ish. It's about 5 points down on SPY, like from where we are right now. That's really 6, but that 427-ish area, that could be the ripe area for a bounce. Looks like it lines up in a lot of ways what I was looking at early this morning. But please continue.
Well, I think that's about all I've got. I guess I do want to mention, because we talked about this a little bit on Friday, for anybody that's listening in right now that may listen to this in the future that hasn't been following along and catching this, every morning. If you were to go back and listen to the last, say, 2 weeks, there's been a handful of tickers that I've gone through the charts on, that we've talked about. And just to kind of reinforce the value of what we're trying to do here and what we're doing every morning, we talked about Tesla when it was we charted it out when it was down around, I think, in that 230, high 230s, low 240s, kind of right in there, I think. And then it ran to 270 something. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And then we talked about potential short on AMD based on the charts. Mm-hmm. And that was when it was, I think, banging up around 120, 122.
That was like 120, 125-ish, yeah.
Yeah, 125-ish. That would have worked out well. We talked about Bitcoin when it was right around 25K. Because it was this 50% pullback off this move, right? And then it ran 31.5. So that would have worked out. We talked about a buy area on Intel. In fact, that was just Friday morning, right around that 32 level. And, at least thus far, that would have been a good spot to dip your toes. There was one other one, I can't remember what it was now, but just reinforcing the value of what we bring outside of the daily levels and everything that we go through. We pull a ticker out. It's not like we chart all of them, but we try to bring to light good setups when they're when they're there. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you for pointing that out. Do we get Stockington this morning? I know he
Yeah.
was
Hello?
he was going fishing. Um, so
Did he
you
make
never
it
know
back?
with these things.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Oh,
Check, check.
Stockington. What's up, buddy?
I'm here. Hello. I'm awake. I'm ready. How's it going?
It's going well. It's even that much better knowing that you made it back from the wilderness.
I made it back safe and sound. The neighbors showed up and that scared us off. We showed up day one. We're like, wow, this is so cool. We've got a campsite. We're all out here in the wilderness by ourselves. And then we came back the second day and we're like, oh shit, there's crying babies and strangers on top of us. But it was fun. Yeah. Let's get into some stuff. Get this share going and we jump in. So I was going to talk a little bit today about Mr. Al Brooks and the 10-minute chart. I don't know if you guys can see what I got going yet.
I don't see your chart added to the stream. Try to reshare it.
How about that?
Stockington, are you hungover?
No, I'm just tired.
There.
There we go. All right. So, Al Brooks, he's saying most patterns have about a 50-50 shot of actually playing out and working. So this is the NASDAQ 10-minute. I've been talking about the 10-minute. It's been a super helpful chart for me. And so I just wanted to kind of use it, talk through it real quick. And so this is last week. This is the first day of the week, Tuesday. That's a bear flag, and that's all they got. That's that little push down right there. So I think this is a good example of, what we need to be aware of if you're trying to trade patterns, which personally, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm looking for these patterns, and then I'm adding the Mr. T stuff to them. So when I was looking at this bear flag the other day, we would have a Mr. T fair value gap right there. And you can see when it, even though we had the bear flag kind of played out and went up into that and then used it as support. So that's where I would be saying, oh, we just had a 10-minute candle close above this fair value gap. That's a long. And then we had this one up here during the day on Tuesday. And you can see the importance of that one there. That would have been a tricky one because it did close above, but then gave a bear signal again. And then it kept rejecting at that fair value gap. So that was Tuesday on patterns and Mr. T setups. Here's Wednesday. Same thing again. They bear flag it, and that's all they got, right? And then here, this was the bottom of another Mr. T setup. Another fair value gap up there, went right up into it. So this is just kind of like how I'm looking for combining the actual chart setup and just being extra cautious in these, because it seems like everyone is kind of has in the back of their head, well, like, wow, we're all the way up here. We need to go down now. And it's like there's a lot of these. There's 2 days in a row where they put in a big old bearish pattern, confirmed it, and then it didn't get any pushed down. This one I wasn't on voice for, but again, a 10-minute head and shoulders. That's all they got, and then we went up. So just kind of stuff that I'm looking for, things that I'm trying to stay aware of in terms of how the price action is playing out. So if we could jump over to the setup right now, this is the same descending megaphone kind of thing that I had on the NASDAQ that I was showing on Thursday. It's still kind of bouncing around in here. The pink box is the new week opening gap. I've already kind of traded up and through that. I was looking at it, following Bender along on his view, and this kind of did start to have a little bit of a bear flag look to it on a 15-minute, maybe even more pronounced on the ES than the NASDAQ there. But going back over this way, if we're going to look for our first upside target, would be, we've just got this small fair value gap right there, I believe. Yeah, it's on the 4 hour. So this would be the first upside target. which is that 80-25. And then next, we've got, if we're going to start working on this pattern, we've got this fair value gap here with room up to 226.25. Hourly, I have this line marked out because if we're going to pull back, I would assume they probably want to stop this guy out who bought long right there. And then our other downside targets, if we're going to, come down and test the bottom of the megaphone, we also have this weekly fair value gap with room down to 866.75. So that's what I'm kind of looking at here on the NASDAQ. Jump over to the Russell. So I was saying at the end of last week, it was like looking like this huge bear flag, and then I had a pretty weak, bull flag. I was looking at it something maybe more like, it was like looking a little bit like this kind of thing. I was looking for that kind of bear flag or bull flag, falling wedge, and then didn't play out. Al Brooks, 50-50 shot on the patterns. So again, pink box is going to be our new week opening gap, kind of trading right in the middle of that now. Gold box is going to be an upside target daily fair value gap with room up to that 1857. And then if we're going to continue back to the downside, another daily fair value gap below with room down to 1795.70. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. We'll see if it holds this lower trend line here on the Russell. Again, kind of the bigger theme. Are we, is everyone waiting for big tech to cool off? And so that's kind of why I keep wanting to watch the Russell. If we jump over to the individual tickers, weekly inside bar here on CRM and a massive dark pool on Friday. Dark pool was very active the end of last week. I don't know what was going on there, but I dropped them in the room. But yeah, so CRM, this line here, let's see, make this a little bit clearer. 210.09, I think is going to be the important, and again, the weekly inside bar. So if we pop up back above that, next I'll be looking for this 213.50. If we're going to go down, you can see we've got this pretty important line down here at 208.10. So I'm going to be watching that, and then we can probably add some other downside targets if we're going to continue down. There's probably something there. So that's kind of what I'll be focusing on CRM this week. The other one I wanted to watch was talking about Coin. So Coin had a lawsuit settlement on Friday. Crypto's been on fire, and Coin's been in this massive falling wedge for quite a while. So let's see if it's gonna keep going. Next, I'm going to be looking for this 67.05 and then up into this 74 area. But I think there could be and Coin got some bull flow if I'm on Friday as well, I believe, right? So they got the lawsuits fixed up. They got a bullish chart pattern. I think there could be a good move to the upside on Coin. And then I think Chadden had a partnership on Snow mentioned. Snow was also a weekly inside bar. So it could, if it gets going, could be some nice compression. Looks like it needs to pop this line here. What would this be? 184.55. Some kind of rejection there. On the daily for a second there, I was going to say he's kind of building out a big old head and shoulders, left shoulder head. But and then it's been respecting that trend line. So we'll kind of see what we get. But I think Snow would be another good watch for this week. And that's all I got.
All right, very good. Thanks, Stonkington. Anything in particular? One ticker that you're really locked in on that you think can deliver some action as far as everything that you poured out?
CRM, yeah. 57% average 30-day on one line. That's worth watching. Plus the weekly inside bar. Compressed.
Very good. CRM. Well, I'll definitely keep my eyes peeled for flow. All right, very good. That's all I got. We're coming into a very lazy Monday. Very, very lazy. Wednesday, again, we have bank stress tests. We have GDP. Friday, we have PCE. So that's the landscape. I'm sure we'll have federales speaking here, there, and everywhere. So just be aware, like always. Let's have a good week. Whatever we want the week to be, It is in our hands at this point. Let's make it a good one. We'll see you guys soon.
All right. See you in a few.